Namaste, YouTube Lokaya Namaḥ. Bhagavatam, Canto 5, new chapter, chapter 12. Here we're going to have Rahūgaṇa reply to Brahman Bharata's teaching. So Brahman Bharata basically said nothing is the way we think it is. That reality isn't what we think it is. And now Rahūgaṇa is going to ask a question about that. And then we're going to hear Bharata's initial reply. And thank you all for joining. Samurai, Kermit, Snail, Bhavana, and Wolf especially. Let's, as they say, do this. Oops, out of order. Trying to be fancy. Okay. Rahūgaṇa uvāca. Namo kāraṇa-vigrahāya. svarūpa-tucchīkṛta-vigrahāya. Namo vadhūta dvija-bandhu-liṅga. nigūḍha-nityānubhavāya tubhyam. Rahūgaṇa said, my respects to you, whose embodiment doesn't do justice to your true form. My respects to you, always keeping your deep experience hidden by looking like a reject, disqualified scholar. So that's interesting. Now the king is paying his respects. Alf, I can tell that's you, even without seeing the name. Now, Rahūgaṇa is paying his respects to this Brahmana, and the way that he does so is quite interesting. So he says, kāraṇa-vigrahāya svarūpa-tucchīkṛta-vigrahāya. Your vigraha, the way that you've manifested yourself. Vigraha is a word for body. Interesting because it's related with the word graha. For astrology lovers, means planet or something that is held together or holds something. That's grah. Vigraha means the thing that separates you. Grah means to pull together, and vigraha means to separate. So the body is called a vigraha in the sense that when something has a body, then you can tell the difference between this water and this water. Whereas if they weren't in these bottles, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two waters. So the bottles here are called the vigraha. And that's also the word that we apply to the body. And instead of water, it's the real person, the consciousness, the soul. So he's saying that this vigraha is tucchīkṛta. This vigraha insults or doesn't do justice to svarūpa. The real form. Svarūpa is the real form. It's not exactly like this water, because the water doesn't really have a shape. It just assumes the shape of its container. But consciousness does have a svarūpa. It does have a shape. So what Rahūgaṇa is saying is that your shape, he's telling this Bharata that your shape, your form, doesn't do justice to your true form. Because he looks like a vadhūta, a rejected person. He looks like a dvija-bandhu, not really a qualified scholar, a disqualified scholar. But to me, Rahūgaṇa is trying to express something, but he's actually showing his ignorance. What are you supposed to look like? What does Rahūgaṇa expect an enlightened person to look like? What he's saying is, you have nidāgha-dagdhasya. You have very deep realization. But this very deep realization is nigūḍha by your vigraha. It's being hidden or kept secret because of this form because you look like a misfit. To my ears, it sounds like Rahūgaṇa doesn't know what he's talking about. What do you expect a deeply realized person to look like? Not a misfit? What did he expect? That he should look like another king? That he should look like a rich person? That he should look like a socially perfect creature? Makes no sense what he's saying, actually. But he's expressing his own feeling that I couldn't recognize your glory because you look like a misfit. It just shows how superficial he is. Now the next thing he says, he's going to say 4 things, and the 4th thing is going to be his question. Jvarāmayārtasya yathāgadaṁ sat. Nidāgha-dagdhasya yathā himāmbhaḥ. Let's do that again. Jvarāmayārtasya yathāgadaṁ sat. Nidāgha-dagdhasya yathā himāmbhaḥ. kudeha-mānāhi-vidaṣṭa-dṛṣṭeḥ. Brahman vacaste mṛtam auṣadhaṁ. My body and mind are poisoned by a snake bite, obviously. My body and mind are poisoned by a snake bite, vidaṣṭa. So it's become kudeha. It's ill. My body and mind are ill. But Brahman, O teacher, your words, vacas, are like amrita auṣadhaṁ, life-giving medicine, immortal medicine. Jvarāmayārtasya yathāgadaṁ, they're like good medicine for the fever-afflicted. Nidāgha-dagdhasya yathā himāmbhaḥ, they're like ice water for the sun-parched. So this, I think, is very beautiful. He says something very beautiful right now. He says, your words, what you're teaching me, what you're telling me, feels like ice water when I'm in the desert. Or it feels like aspirin when I have a fever. And I do have a fever. I've been bitten by a snake of ignorance. And so my mind is ill. I can't perceive things correctly. But I'm still confused, he's going to say. Tasmād bhavantaṁ mama saṁśayārthaṁ prakṣyāmi paścāt aduna subodham adhyātma-yoga-grathitaṁ tavoktam khyati kautūhala-cetaso me. Later, I will disclose other things that I don't understand. For now, I want to more clearly understand the way you described self-knowledge. Explain it again. I want to understand it. Each statement that he's making, in my opinion, is getting better. So this one, I really like this statement. This is a good statement for all of us on YouTube as well. He says, paścāt, later on, I'll ask my other questions. Mama saṁśayārthaṁ prakṣyāmi. I'll send you my questions. Prakṣyāmi actually means to send. I'll send you my questions later. Right now, let's stay on topic. I want to know about exactly what you just said. I have other questions about other things that are related, but I still haven't really understood what you said. This is a really good example of a good student. A disorganized mind bounces to the question related to the thing they hear a teacher say. But an organized student makes sure that first of all they understand what the teacher says, then they ask about the corollary things. So he's illustrating that good quality here. So he said, Aduna subodham, I really want to make sure I understand. Adhyātma-yoga-grathitaṁ, what you just described about adhyātma-yoga, the self-knowledge. I am kautūhala-cetaso. I'm really curious. I really want to make sure I understand this. So akyahi, please tell me again. Say it again. Can you repeat that? This is basically what he said to the teacher. I really want to what he basically said here is, I have a lot of questions, but first I really want to make sure that I understood what you just said. Can you please repeat it? I really want to pay attention to it. That's a great student. Now he says, this is this fourth and final thing that he's going to say. This is his specific question. Now he has a specific question. He's not just going to make the teacher repeat every single thing he just said. He has a specific question that he needs repeated. This particular topic he needs a repeat. Yad aha yogeshwara drishyamanam kriya palamsya sad vyavahara moolam na hyanjasa tattva vimarshanaya bhavan anushmin pramate manome. You said the realness of the visible world with all its action and results is not deeper than convention. Its realness disappears when carefully examined. That's what's confusing me. Pramate manome, anushmin. This is what pramate confuses mana, the mind, me, of me. This is what confuses my mind. Oh, yoga master, you said that the kriya pala, the actions and the results, like carrying a palanquin and getting tired from it, the actions and the results that we were talking about way before this whole philosophy started. You said that those actions and those results aren't actually real. They're only conventionally real. Sat vivahara mulam. The realness of them, sat, the root of the realness of them only goes to vyavahara, convention. This is an important thing to understand. What the hell is this word vyavahara? What does convention mean? Convention means the way that we agree upon doing something. Kan, together, vent, how we will go out together. Convention. The way that we will work, the way that we'll operate, the way that we'll move together is convention. So like coordinated movement is convent. So when we translate this word vyavahara as convention, we mean the way that everybody agrees. Everybody agrees that the light coming from the sky with a big ball, that's what it is, that there's light in the sky from a big ball. We all perceive the data in a certain way and we all agree. And so we call it the sun and we say there's a big ball in the sky. That's the conventional reality. We all agree. We see a thing here and it picks up sound and we call it a microphone and we understand the way it works, and by convention we all agree about what it is. So because we all agree about something, we all have basically the same reality experienced. When people don't agree about something, they hardly experience the same reality. My daughter may not like the same restaurant that I like. So the reality that I experienced in that restaurant is a bit different than what she experiences in that restaurant. Because you don't have convention or mutual agreement about what the thing is. So what the teacher, Bharata, had said was that the reality of the world is based on convention. It's based on the way that we agree to perceive it. The way that we want to perceive it. The way that's practical to perceive it. Those are the implications of the word vyavahara. And it's not deeper than that. Tattva vimarshanaya na anjasa. It's not directly the truth. Anjasa means direct. It's not directly the truth. It's an assumed truth. It is a truth, but it's an assumed truth. For example, if I say this is a bomb, and you think it's a bomb, and you agree that it's a bomb, then we're going to treat this like a bomb. And we're going to get scared of it, and we're going to put it down, and we're going to run away from it. So it will have some effects as if it was a bomb. Not all of them, but some of the effects as if it was a bomb. If you say this guy is great, then it encourages other people to think this guy's great. That's how conventional reality works. But if you examine it really carefully, then you might see it anjasa, you might see it directly, the way it really is, without the preconceptions. And you might say, that is not a bomb. Or that guy is not great. So that's what Bharata is saying. Reality appears to be a microphone, but if you look at it carefully, you realize it's not a microphone. It was built from other stuff. It's a collection of other stuff. It can be used as a microphone. Vyavahara is a microphone. The Vyavaharic reality is that it's a microphone, the conventional reality. But the deeper reality is it's a field of energy being held together by some forces. And there's deeper reality still than that. And today he's going to explain what they are. Someone asked, Alf asked, what's the Sanskrit word for the yoga of self-knowledge? Let me see if you can find it, Alf. I will read it very slowly to you. Yad, is that? No. Yad just means that. Aha, what you said. Yogeshwara. Could be, right? Yoga of self-knowledge. Wrong verse. You're asking about the previous verse. Tasmād, therefore, bhavantaṁ, you, mama, me, saṁśayārthaṁ, things that I don't understand. Prakṣyāmi, tell me. I will send you. Paschat, later. Adhuna, now. Subodham, want to understand. Adhyātma, do you hear the word atma? Adhyātma-yoga-grathitaṁ. That's the word for self-knowledge, the yoga of self-knowledge. Adhyātma-yoga. Okay. Raj Yoga would be the king of yogas or something, or yoga for kings, depends on the context of the word. Brahma-vigyāna means comprehension of Brahman. Okay, so those are his questions. So the first thing Rahūgaṇa said, so let's just review this. Rahūgaṇa said, my respects to you, whose embodiment doesn't do justice to your true form. My respects to you, always keeping your deep experience hidden by looking like a reject, disqualified scholar. Don't know what the hell he's really revealing there, except that he doesn't know what enlightened people really look like. My body and mind are poisoned by a snake bite, and your words are like immortal medicine for me. They are like good medicine for the fever-afflicted, like ice water for the sun-parched. Later, I will disclose other things that I do not understand, but for now, I want to more clearly understand the way you described self-knowledge. Explain it again, I want to understand it. You said, the realness of the visible world, with all its action and results, is not deeper than convention. Its realness disappears when carefully examined. I am confused about this. Now, somebody's asking about Raj Yoga. Ruth, what does it mean when somebody says they have a Raj Yoga? It means they have a combination of a Kendra and a Kona Lord in their astrology chart. Yoga means combination. Different words, phrases mean different things in different contexts. Now let's go on and see how Brahmana replies. Brahmana Bharata. Brahmana uvāca ayam jano nāna chalan prathivyam ya parthiva kasya heto ayam jano nāma chalan prathivyam ya parthiva kasya heto tasyapi changryor adhigulpa-jangha januru madhyora shirodharangsa. The teacher said, O Earth Master, that's a word for a king, but he picks this particular word, Parthivya. O Earth Master, this thing called a person is a product of the earth. Ayam jano nama. This thing, ayam, that we call a jana, a person, jananam, is prithivya, something made from earth, dirt, clay, mud, regular components, carbon, silicon, nitrogen. This thing called a person is a product of earth. but it moves around. Chalan. It moves around on the earth for whatever reasons. Kasya heto. Using its feet. Tasyapi changrayo. And above those feet are its ankles, calves, knees, thighs, midsection, neck, and shoulders. Amsedhi dharvi shibikacha yasyam. So virya rajetya padesh aste. Yasmin bhavan rudha nijabhimano. Rajamsi sindhushviti dur madanda. So let's go back because it reads really well together. O Earth Master, this thing called a person is a product of the earth. It moves around on the earth for whatever reasons, using its feet. Above these feet are its ankles, then the calves, then the knees, then the thighs, then the midsection, then the neck, then the shoulders. On these shoulders is a wooden palanquin. And in that palanquin, there's something that we decided to call the king of Sauvira. In that thing, you build your sense of self. I am the king of Sindhu. It blinds and intoxicates you. That's a cool delivery. That is a very cool delivery. This stuff is all made out of earth. Somebody's feet. This thing that we call a person is carrying this palanquin. What is it? It's made out of earth. It moves around on feet that are powered by ankles, that are powered by calves, that are powered by knees, that are powered by thighs. From a midsection with a neck, on shoulders, and on the shoulders I'm carrying this palanquin, and in this palanquin is this other thing with feet, ankles, and so forth. And that thing we decided to call the king. And you think that thing in the palanquin called the king is you. And that's why you're blind. Durmada andha. You're blinded by the intoxication of thinking that little clay pot called the king is me. Now the king may say, well, what am I blind about? That is me. So he's going to say, because you think that that's you, then all kinds of distortions and justifications arise. Shochan imams tvam adhikashta dinan vishtya nigrinnan niranugrahosi janasya goptasmi vikathamano na shobhase vriddhisabhasu-dṛṣṭeḥ. You forcibly and cruelly arrested these miserable, pitiful destitutes who carry you, while prattling on about being the citizen's protector. Your audacity doesn't look good among the mature. Because you think you're this king entitled. You think you're entitled. Because you decided that clump of dirt called a king is you. Now you think you're entitled to exploit everybody else. To be served by everybody else. At their expense. So you go around arresting all the rest of the clumps of dirt. And forcing them to carry your palanquin. And at the same time, you have the audacity to call yourself the protector of these clumps of dirt. Because remember the king said before, I'm the protector of you. Isn't it my duty to punish you if you do something wrong? So now Bharata is saying, you are the most audacious thing I've ever seen. You're calling yourself my protector after you enslaved me? It might look good to you. It works in your mind. It makes sense to you. But nashobhase vritta sabhasu drṣṭa. It doesn't look beautiful to people who are mature. Now, he's going to say, really, there's no difference between the clump of dirt that is carrying you and the clump of dirt that you think you are being carried. So why are you on such an ego trip? How you deal with these other clumps of dirt? Yada kshitav eva characharasya vidāma-nishtam prabhavancha nityam tan namaton yad vyavaharamulan nirupyatam satkriyanumaneyam satkriyayanumeyam. Because we know that all the different grades of beings are constantly created and destroyed. Your audacity doesn't look good among the mature. Why? Why would a mature person not think that it's okay for the superior clump of dirt to exploit the inferior clump of dirt? That's what it means to be superior. So Bhart's answer is, because the people who are wise know that there is no such thing as a superior clump of dirt. The superiority of a particular clump of dirt is just in the name and the convention. We decide that this person who is this clump of dirt with this kind of ankles, knees, and thighs will be our king because we need a king. And we decide that this other clumps of dirt over here will be the workers because we need workers. There is a reality to that, but it's not very deep. It's a conventional reality. If you claim to be a deep person, then you won't just fixate on the conventional reality. And you're a king, you should be a deep person. Because we know that the different grades of beings are constantly created and destroyed. Kshitaveva characharasya vidāma-nishtam prabhavancha nityam. Nishtam prabhavam nityam, always nishtha prabhava. Nishtha prabhava. The dirt is constantly being, like in the park. The kids make a doll out of the mud, or they make some shape out of the mud, and then it falls apart. And then they make it another one, and then it falls apart. And then they make another one, and then it falls apart. In the same way, the whole world, all the molecules are constantly being formed together by the consciousness, and then falling apart when the consciousness relinquishes them, and then being put back together, and then falling apart, and then being put back together, and then falling apart. So who cares if right now this clump is in this configuration and that clump is in the other configuration? Tomorrow they'll be different. Today you're a king and I'm your servant. Tomorrow I'm the king and you're my servant. Yesterday, bro, I was the king. He's going to tell him later. He's going to say, yesterday your grandfather was paying me taxes. Now today I'm your chariot carrier. So why fixate upon the distinctions between things that are only there for instantaneous moments? The difference between these different clumps is just the names that we apply to them as a result of the conventions for how we use them. Nirupyatam, you'd be able to see this satkriyayanumeyam if your intellect worked right. So Bharta has given up on being respectful to the king. And now he's accepting the position of the teacher and just really giving him a good whipping. If you had a brain, he says basically, satkriya anumeyam, if you had a brain for real, you'd actually see this. Or you're walking around prancing around like you read a lot of books. But if you actually had a brain, you wouldn't be thinking that clumps of dirt are so important. Nomadic sun is the Vedic caste system part of convention, most certainly. So, now he goes on. Now, at this point, the king would think, but I'm trying to understand what you said. So, you said that the way things appear is not real. I mean, it's pretty clear already, right? But either the king is very dense or very good as a student, because he wants to make sure he really, really understands this. So Bharata really has made it clear. The way that things are right now, this is a microphone right now, but it won't be a microphone in 150 years. And therefore it's not really actually a microphone, though we use it as a microphone. So that's pretty clear. The reality is not what it looks like right now, although there's a conventional reality to it. But he's saying, but it's still real, isn't it? This is a microphone. It's made out of aluminum and copper and things like that. Iron. But aluminum, copper, and iron are real. The microphone might not be real, but the aluminum, copper, and iron is real, right? Now he's going to say, nope. Evam niruktam kshiti shabdavritam asannidhanat pramanvayoye avidya manasa kalpitaste yesham samuhena krito vishesha. This thing that we describe as earth is also just a concept. All individual things are aggregates of smaller, more fundamental particles, like earth, but these particles and the generating field from which they evolve are just concepts fabricated by the ignorant mind. Take a breath. I can't breathe right because I'm self-conscious about that. And I hate the way that sounds in the microphone. But you guys have to just bear with me because it's pollen season. And man, it's a 10-year. It's the worst pollen season in 10 years. But this verse right here. Frame it. Study it. Think about it. If you understand this verse, then you don't need to understand cosmology and astrophysics because it's all right here. You don't need to understand Einstein and all that stuff because it's all here in this verse. Everything that all the scientists are trying to say. So let's go over it more carefully. This microphone, it's made out of copper, iron, etc. Aluminum isn't the microphone isn't really real, but copper, iron, and aluminum is real, right? This body is made out of carbon, oxygen, water, so hydrogen, oxygen, carbon. The body might not be real in a permanent sense, but the carbon, oxygen, water, that's real. Nambart says stuff is not real. So he says this thing. Asannidanat pramanvayoye. He says that everything is created by a smaller particle. Right? So you take something like a microphone and then you can go smaller than it. And you can say that it's made out of aluminum, etc. You can say that it's made out of wires and diaphragms and so forth. And then you can say those wires and diaphragms are made of something still smaller, aluminum, iron, etc. Then you can say that aluminum is made of something still smaller, protons, neutrons, electrons. Then you can say those protons are made of something still smaller, quarks, bosons. Then you can go still smaller, still smaller, still smaller, until you get down to something called pradhan or nidāgha, which is the theoretical, fundamental, irreducible particle of reality. The one thing that makes everything else. Except for that, nothing else is real. So even the thing, niruktam-kshiti-shabda-vritam, the thing that we describe with the word earth, or the thing that we describe with the word carbon, it's just a kalpita. It's a perception that we agree upon. You try to understand, this is exactly what Einstein and all those other quantum physicists, astrophysicists are saying. That reality is mass itself, E equals mc squared. Mass itself is a transformation of a field or energy that we perceive as mass. We perceive it as mass. We perceive it as an electron. What is it really? So you can go down the rabbit hole. We think that this is a microphone, but it's not. It's really a quark. It's not. It's not really a quark. The quark is also made of something. So what is the ultimate thing that things are made of? That's what a wise person has to try to find. Because the other stuff is the conceptions of a perceiving tool, a manas, that isn't informed. Avidya-manasa. Avidya-manasa kalpitaste. Thinking that this thing is the basis of reality is the misconception of the perceiving machine. Whether we think it on a big scale, and we think this body is the basis of reality, or we think it on a small scale, and we think my internal organs, or my blood, or my molecules, etc., or my electrons, my bosons, my quarks. It's all still a misconception. So the next text is also super, super important. Because it's going to explain what is that irreducible particle. Thank you, Empress. What is the name of the irreducible particle? Here it has just been referred to as pradhan or nidāgha, but it's actually not called pradhan. It's nidāgha in this text. Pradhan is another aspect of it, but in the next statement, he's going to explain what the nidāgha is. Is this verse saying that karma is not real? Not necessarily, but the karma has many aspects to it, and some of them are not real. Nice verse, Eddie. Is karma a misconception? Let's see what he says. Let's see what he says in the next verse. Evam kusham sthulam anur brihadyat asach sach jivam ajivam anyat dravya swabhavashya kala karma. You guys are good. You people are very good. You have same questions. Your mind is thinking the same way Bharata's mind is thinking. I salute you. because he directly gave you the answer right after you asked it. Nam najaya kritam dvitiyam evam krisham stulamanur brihad yad asach chasach jivam ajivam anyat dravya swabhavasya kala karma nam najaya kritam dvitiyam. It's going to take us a minute to understand what he just said, and then there's one more statement. Actually, so it's going to take one more statement before he explains really what the irreducible particle is. Here he says, this is why dualities like weakness and strongness, smallness and bigness, effect and cause, living and non-living, are just labels for states caused by the eternal divine, utilizing substance, nature, inclination, temporality, and purpose. Karma here I'm describing as purpose. The actual essence of what karma is purpose, purposeful action. So why, he said, this is why dualities, why? The thing we just call earth is just a concept. All individual things are aggregates of smaller, more fundamental particles like earth, but these particles and the generating field from which they evolve are just concepts fabricated by the ignorant mind. This is why dualities. So because of the concepts fabricated by the ignorant mind, we get dualities. This thing is big, this thing is small. This thing is strong, this thing is weak. Kusham, stolam. This thing is skinny, this thing is fat. Anu brihat, this thing is small, this thing is big. Sat, asat. This thing is real, this thing is unreal. Or this thing is the parent, this thing is the child. Or this thing is the effect, this thing is the cause. Jivam, ajivam. This thing is alive, that thing is not alive. Ooh, that's very deep. All of that duality and distinction is based on an ignorant perception machine, an uninformed perception machine. Actually, there's not a difference between a living thing and a non-living thing. It's easy to see there's not really a difference between a big thing and a small thing. There's not a difference between a galaxy and an atom. There's not a difference between a fat thing and a skinny thing. There's not a difference between a cause and effect because the effect becomes another cause. And for some reason, there's not a difference between a living thing and another thing because the living thing is just only animated. And the other thing is not currently being animated, and actually it is being animated, but in a way that we're not perceiving. This is why dualities like weakness and strongness, smallness and bigness, effect and cause, living and non-living, they're just labels. Namna. They're just labels. They're just names. For states caused by ajaya, avehi, by the one thing which is never created and never destroyed. The ajaya, the one thing which is real, utilizes these other principles, which is what you asked about, what's karma? Utilizes these fundamental principles that are inherently at its disposal. And by utilizing those inherent principles at its disposal, creates reality, creates the conventional reality. The one thing which is real is the only true reality, but by utilizing its powers, it creates conventional reality in a multifarious way. So what are those things which are at its disposal? 5 things. Dravya, swabhava, ashaya, kala, karma. Each one is described in its own books and books and books and books to fully understand. But basically speaking, dravya means substance. Swabhava means nature. Like my nature, your nature. The properties that are inherent to a thing. which differentiated from another thing, is svabhava. Dravya is the material which carries the properties. Dravya is the substance, and svabhava are the properties of the substance. And then ashaya is the inclination that the substance has towards action. Kala is the force which enables activity, also known as time. And karma is the activity itself, or at this stage of the game, it's the ability to act. So this thing, ajaya, the thing which is not created, which is still, he still hasn't told us what it is. Next text he will. The thing that is ajaya has has access to these 5 inherent powers. It has substance to it, means that it can have properties. A substance is something which can have properties. So this one reality has substance, therefore has svabhav. It has properties. And because it has svabhav, it has ashaya, which means desire or inclination. Like an electron. Because it's a thing, dravya, and the electron has svabhav. It has a nature to it. And how does that svabhav show itself? By its ashaya, which we can describe as a negative charge. And then, if that ashaya is aided by kala, time is a sequencer for events. Then karma, it can act. And so it can act. The negative charge can act. How would it act? By its svabhava, it would pull to a positive charge. So all of the things which are created, all of the things which exist, have these 5 properties to them. Dravya, svabhava, ashaya, kala, karma. Because these 5 properties are the powers that the ajaya, the uncreated thing, uses to create things. So now, this is why we say these 5 things are eternal. Because these 5 things are the powers that the ajaya, the eternal thing, uses. And the properties of an eternal thing are also eternal. The intrinsic properties of an eternal thing are eternal. Now, the final verse for today, he's finally going to tell us, what is that thing? What is that irreducible, ultimate, fundamental entity that creates all the things, that create all the things, that create all the things, that create all the clumps of dirt, that create all of the carbons and the oxygens and everything, that create all these bodies that people inhabit, that we think one is a king and one is a servant? Jnanam vishuddham paramarthamekam anantaram tvabahir brahma satyam pratyak prashantam bhagavat shabda sagyam yad vasudevam kavayo vadanti. The wise say that the reality behind all this is Brahman, consciousness, awareness itself, the most valuable thing, without interior or exterior, the oneness of which pacifies all differentiation. It is more fully known by the word Bhagwan, because it is Vasudeva, the conscious entity. 9, 10, and 11, if we can understand 9, 10, and 11, we understood all the Upanishads This is Mahavakya right here, 9, 10, 11 from Brahman, from Brahmana-bharata. We understood everything. If we can understand 9, 10, and 11, we're done. We got no more avidya. So try. We should try to be as inquisitive as Rahūgaṇa is, and as pointed and as fixed as Rahūgaṇa is listening to Bharata. We should try to be the same. So what is he saying? Let's pull this text apart. What is the ajaya, the thing which is not created, but which creates everything? Jnanam. Actually, the Jnanam is not in a nominative case, is it? It's an accusative case. So the thing which is in a nominative case is Brahma. Just because it's the first word isn't the first concept. Brahma. Brahma means the thing which comprehends. The thing which understands. So Brahman means consciousness. This is the Vedic worldview. The Vedic worldview is that the ultimate irreducible particle is consciousness. And that consciousness has 5 capacities. It can produce substance, which can have properties, which therefore have inclinations, and using the ability to sequence, which cause sequence or kala, and thereby enact action or karma. And because of that, evolution happens in the dravyas. And because of the evolution in the dravyas, all sorts of evolutes manifest. From quantum fields to the bosons to all those things which eventually result in your lipstick or your computer. Brahman is satyam. Brahman is reality. Consciousness is reality. Real anjasa reality. The actual real reality. Not a convention. Not a mutually agreed upon reality. The actual reality is consciousness, Brahman. And this Brahman has no antaram, no inside. No, and also a bahir. It doesn't have an outside. What does it mean? That means this is irreducible particle. It doesn't have an inside. Nantaram. There's nothing smaller than it. And also, abahir, there's nothing bigger than it. It's irreducible and infinite. And because it doesn't have antaram and abahir, it's ekam. It's indivisible. Ek, do, teen, char, panch, ek, one. Brahman is one, ekam. Na anantaram, abahir. It doesn't have an inside or an outside. Param artham. It is the thing which gives meaning to everything else. None of the dravya, swabhava, nothing has any meaning in it. None of it has any value or worth or happiness in it. All of the happiness, pleasure, joy, satisfaction, interest, fascination is in Brahman. And Brahman creates these things, racing cars, toy swords. Brahman creates all these things, and therefore all these things have some interest, pleasure, happiness in them, because they manifest from Brahman. Musical instruments, sound. But Brahman is paramartham. Brahman is the thing that actually we seek. We want the real wealth. Real wealth is not gold. Real wealth is not silver. Real wealth is not Bitcoin. Real wealth is not food. Real wealth is not health. Real wealth is your experience. And real wealth actually is the experiencer. And what is the experiencer? Brahman. Jnanam vishuddham. Pure experiencing capacity. Jnanam vishuddham. Jnanam vishuddham pramartha ekam anantaram tabbahir brahma satyam. Now this is so interesting. I have a person in mind that I hope will listen to this carefully. And I think she knows who she is. Pratyak prashantam. Brahman is ekam. Anantaram abahir. Brahman is one thing and there's nothing else except it. There's nothing outside it, abahir. And there's nothing inside it, anantara. It is everything. Then what is this microphone? What is that camera? What am I? What are you? What is this clump of dirt and that clump of dirt? Why are there different clumps of dirt? Pritak. Pritak is the opposite of ek. Ek means one, pritak means many. Pritak prashantam. You know the word shanti. Everybody knows the word shanti. Probably my mother knows the word shanti. Shanti, shanti, shanti is the one time that everybody in the yoga class can participate and say the same mantra together. Shanti means peace, pacification, placation, calmness. Prashanta means to make peaceful. Pritak prashantam. Brahman is the one principle. It does not annihilate differentiation. It gives peace to the differentiation. It gives harmony to the differentiation. If we have awareness of Brahman, then all of the different objects are peaceful, are harmonious. If we don't have awareness of Brahman, then all of the different things are at odds with each other. They're in contest with each other. They're fighting to occupy the same space. So realization of Brahman will not annihilate realization of the distinctions of things. The dravya, the swabhav, the ashaya, the kala, the karma is not annihilated by Brahman. But it is pacified by Brahman. It's made peaceful, it's made cooperative, it's made harmonious by Brahman. So this is why Bharata says, Bhagavat Shabda Samgya. This Brahman can be known by the words Brahman, but it's more Samgya. Samgya. Sam means perfect. It's more perfectly known by the word Shabda, by the word Bhagavan. Bhagavan Shabda Sangyam. What's the difference between Bhagavan and Brahman in terms of word meaning? Brahman is a substance of consciousness, but Bhagavan is, Vat means a possessor. So the Bhaga is the power, which is the Brahman, and Bhagavan is the possessor of the power. The ability, the thing which has power is called Bhaga. And Bhagavan is the possessor of the thing that has power. So to actually realize Brahman and how Brahman pacifies duality, the irreducible substance which is at the basis of all reality is Brahman. But Brahman isn't just an amorphous indescribable, undelimitable non-entity. It's an entity. And because it's an entity, we call it Bhagavan. So it's the difference between saying the ultimate reality is consciousness. That would be saying the ultimate reality is Brahman. But if we go a step further and say the ultimate reality is better described as Bhagavan, then what we're saying is that consciousness is a power. And power always resides in a powerful. Just like swabhav resides in dravya. Just like dharma resides in dharmi. Just like a property resides in a substance, consciousness resides in a conscious entity. And so the ultimate irreducible particle of reality is a conscious entity, not just consciousness. What's the difference between just consciousness and conscious entity? The difference is that just consciousness doesn't do anything. Conscious entity means someone who wields consciousness, someone who utilizes consciousness. So consciousness as a active entity is Bhagavan. Consciousness just as consciousness is described as Brahman. Consciousness as an active force is Bhagavan. Yat Bhagavan Vasudeva Kavayo Vadanti. And the wise know that the Bhagavan is Vasudev. Vasudev. Deva means consciousness. Vasu means substance. Vasu means a thing. Earth, water, fire, air. The Vasus, the 8 Vasus, the stars, the sun, the earth, the water. Things. Vasus are things. Why is it that Dhanishta Nakshatra is worldly? Because it's ruled by the Vasus, who are things. They're objects. Vasudeva means the conscious object. Very beautiful thing. So here, I'll check your... If there's any questions, I'll check it. Meanwhile, giving you a chance to write whatever question you wanted to write. I'll review all the verses that we looked at today. Rahūgaṇa replied, my respects to you, whose embodiment doesn't do justice to your true form. My respects to you, always keeping your deep experience hidden by looking like a reject, disqualified scholar. Remember with that, I said this vigraha and this vigraha make the water different. This body and this body make the soul different. But the svarūpa, the water, is unlike the soul because the soul has its own svarūpa. That concept, it comes out at the end as well too. The Brahman has its own svarūpa as Vasudeva Bhagavan. My body and mind are poisoned by a snake bite, and your words are like immortal medicine for me. They are like good medicine for the fever-afflicted, like ice water for the sun-parched. Later I will disclose other things I do not understand, but for now I want to more clearly understand the way you described self-knowledge. Explain it again, I want to understand it. You said the realness of the visible world, with all its action and results, is not deeper than convention. Its realness disappears when carefully examined. I'm confused about this. So the teacher replies, "O Earth Master, this thing called a person is a product of the earth. It moves around on the earth for whatever reasons, for whatever it wants. Every one of the earth clumps has a different thing that it wants to accomplish, using its feet. Above these feet are its ankles, calves, knees, thighs, midsection, neck, and shoulders. And on those shoulders is a wooden palanquin, and in that palanquin is something we decided to call the king of Sovira. In that thing you build your sense of self. I am the king of Sindhu. And this blinds and intoxicates you. You forcibly and cruelly arrested these miserable, pitiful destitutes who carry you while prattling on about being the citizen's protector. Your audacity doesn't look good among the mature. Because we know that all the different grades of beings are constantly created and destroyed. They are all earth. The difference between them is just the names we apply to them as a result of the conventions for how we use them. You would be able to see this if your intellect functioned correctly. The thing we describe as earth is also just a concept. All individual things are aggregates of smaller, more fundamental particles like earth, but these particles and the generating field from which they evolve are just concepts fabricated by an ignorant mind. This is why dualities like weakness and strongness, smallness and bigness, effect and cause, living and non-living are just labels for states caused by the eternal divine, utilizing substance, nature, inclination, temporality, and temporality and purpose. The wise say that the reality behind all this is Brahman, consciousness, awareness itself, the most valuable thing, without interior or exterior, the oneness of which pacifies all differentiation. It is more fully known by the word Bhagavan because it is Vasudeva, the conscious entity. Because the oneness of Bhagavan pacifies differentiation, because the oneness of Brahman pacifies differentiation, it is not barred from having differentiation. Only ignorance, avidya, creates disharmony in differentiation. But vidya, or jnana vishuddha, accurate perception, perceives harmony expressed as differentiation. This is why Bhagavan is the fullest concept and comprehension of Brahman. The fullest comprehension of consciousness is in the conscious entity, Vasudeva. Let's see. Any prashnas? Let's see if there's any questions that I feel are still outstanding. Is my independent Atma animating multiple realities like a multiverse? No. It's been... I'll publish something on my blog soon where it has questions and answers like this. So no, the answer is no. Each individual Atma is Paramatma Shesh. It's a fragment of Paramatma. And each is vyapti, or pervasive, of its kshetra bhinna, of its particular field. But it is not impossible that you may have amazing fields. So we have a conventional field right now, the body that we operate in. But other beings like gods or yogis, they can make duplicate fields, triplicate fields and they can make fields that are different. And then one Atma can operate what appears to be multiple fields. So, Alf, the answer to your question is my Atma animating multiple realities like a multiverse. Potentially. But no. In the current state, where you are right now, you're limited inside your one field. Very nice. Van and Lisa like this statement, the oneness which pacifies all differentiation. Can we compare Brahman to Akash. Yes, it's reasonable to compare Brahman to space. Are we all from the consciousness of Krishna? That's the meaning of Vasudeva Krishna. Experiencing, experiencer, and experienced as one reality. Yes, Bardo. Harmonized as one reality. Not destroyed. Not negated. Do the fragments ever return to the whole? Yes, but not destroying their nature as fragments. Prashant pratik. The fragments return to the whole by integrating to the whole, but not by destroying themselves. So like if I take this bottle of water and pour some water out, then I may have created a fragment of the water. And then if I put the water back in here, it may cease to be distinguishable, right? So you may think it disappeared because it doesn't have a separate vigraha now. But it hasn't disappeared. It's just your perception of it was poor. What made this water the water here is still in there, making the water the water. But the differentiation of it is now pacified or harmonious. Yes, Vana, very nice. The wolf, ignorance is what we should destroy. Yeah, right. So that's the ignorance which is to be destroyed, because the ignorance is the thing which exaggerates the pratak. Great, right? This is why I'm saying Bhagavad. This is why it is said Bhagavatam is where it's at. This book, Bhagavatam, is nigama-kalpa-tarur-galitam palam. Every important truth of the entire Veda is presented in this Bhagavatam in such a digestible, comprehensible format. This book is Paramartha. This book is the most amazing thing. So that's done by destroying ignorance, as a short answer. So I shall sign off now. Thank you, everybody. For real, thank you so much.